Monday, the 25th of March. Let's get the show started. Of course, the weekend was all that about supplementary elections across the country, a number of states. So some of the news are still filtering in, and this is just coming into our newsroom. A federal high court has dismissed a suit challenging INEC's decision to conclude, collate, and announce the governorship election results from Tafawa Balewa local government in Bauchi State. According to Justice Inyang, dismissing the suit, says the suit lacks jurisdiction. The governor of Bauchi State, Mohammed Abubakar, had asked the court to restrain INEC from concluding the collation and announcement of the result for Tafawa Balewa local government in the March 9th governorship election. You have all the details. News comes first here on Channels Television. All of that at the top of the hour. But let's move on to a big story for this week. 11-member Central Bank of Nigeria Monetary Policy Team today begins their two-day meeting with decisions expected, as always, on Tuesday afternoon. But the Central Bank chief, Godwin Emefiele, last Thursday signaled tight monetary policy will continue until conditions indicate otherwise. Meantime, FSDH Merchant Bank issued a report close to the weekend asking if the temporary price stability that we've seen since January this year will push the Monetary Policy Committee for justification for a cut in headline policy rates, standing at 14% for nearly 2 years. According to the report, the analyst added that the debate supporting easing of monetary policy is that with elections now over, the negative impact of electioneering spending in the domestic economy may be over. However, FSDH research believes that short-term outlook on the Nigerian economy justifies a hold decision on Tuesday on the policy rate at the current level. Also talking about the two-day Monetary Policy Committee starting today, Codros Capital, one of the investment firms also on Broad Street, says they expect the majority of the MPC members to elect to leave policy parameters unchanged. Their view at Codros Capital was based on central bank's intolerance for FX volatility, despite recent surge in foreign exchange inflows, the stability of the naira, and a bit of a descent in headline inflation. So all of that will be chewing over today, tomorrow, and for the rest of the week. And what will the MPC decisions tomorrow mean for the financial markets? What you're seeing right now on your TV screen is a summary of the latest data from Nigeria State Oil, from the State Oil Corporation, the NNPC. That's the Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation, releasing data for the full year 2018. Was it in summary? According to the NNPC, sale of crude oil and gas, which means condensate, was 3.11 trillion naira last year. And the joint venture assets, the central bank, the NNPC paid 1.82 trillion naira, and of course the amount that went into federation account was 1.28 trillion naira, while oil for refining last year was a total of 445,000 barrels. That's the summary. You want to get more details, you need to get on the NNPC website, giving you the full details of last year's activities. Meantime, sticking with the oil industry, Shell Petroleum Nigeria, by the acronym SPDC, and UBA Group have signed a $200 million deal to help local oil firms or contractors to access project finance. Those who are contractors, suppliers, and vendors will be able to access the new, the $200 million, which is part of the Shell's Contractor Support Fund, which of course had been about $2.4 billion US. SPDC supports local contractors. Those who meet valid purchase order can access the fund with UBA, having met the bank's risk assessment criteria. Okay, this is coming through from Akwa Ibom State. That's one of Nigeria's heavy oil producing state. Akwa Ibom publishing its consolidated financial statement for 2017. This is just a summary, what you call the highlight of the numbers. The state government reports total revenue of 192 billion for 2017 full year, while total expenditure came in at 112.8 billion naira. The statement published today says they got a budget support facility, or BSF, of 8.95 billion in 2017, while the Paris Club refunds from the Buhari's administration to every state, Akwa Ibom says this government, the state government, got 33.56 billion out of those monies. Internal loans came in at 220 million naira, while the state government reported no external loans at all for the year 2017. The state government says it finished 2017 with a surplus of 9.36 billion naira and a closing balance of 27.11 billion naira. And back on our market street today, Financial Services Group, FBN Holdings PLC, the board and management will close the market today as the commercial banking arm of FBN Holdings, First Bank of Nigeria, marks 125 years anniversary, one of the first institutions to be listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. So let's take all of this and more to our market street. Our studios in downtown Lagos at the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Temple Ashaji is taking a look at the wrap of the market last week for us when equities managed to finish 0.01%. Temple, take it from here. Good morning. It's good to have you on the program. Let's talk markets.
Good morning, both. Right, yes, like you said correctly, we managed to finish 0.01% yesterday with on Friday rather, but that's the week-on-week analysis because on Friday we actually gained beat some 0.82% on Friday, but eventually the 0.01% came with a bit of a bearish tilt in the market. Month to date moderated some 1.84%. Year to date also moderated some 0.93%. But if you look at the all-share index, it's settled at 31,139.35, with equity capitalization also moderating at some 11.612 trillion naira after we've lost some huge billions actually in terms of naira terms now in the market. If you look at activity level, that was also some 1.014 billion in terms of the transactions that we saw last week, week on week. For the value, it was 9.693 billion naira. So these deals for last week alone was 12,165 in total, and all of these basically explained the kind of sentiment that we saw across board last week. For the sectoral analysis, if you look at the sectoral front, the industrial goods segment of the market outperformed almost all other sectors in the market, up some 2.42%. Next to that is the consumer goods segment of the is actually the banking segment of the market. Banking segment was actually the major performer for the week, was up some 3.82%, driven by the gains that we saw across Access Bank, which rose some 18.12% week on week, and of course Guaranty Trust Bank, which rose some 5.93% week on week. And next to that is industrial goods segment of the market, where we saw CCNN and WAPCO pushing up the indices. Dangote Cement was incidentally down for the greater part of last week and was unable to contribute positively to these indices. And we also saw losses across other sectors. The insurance segment of the market was down 1.09%. Consumer goods segment of the market was down 2.30% on account of huge losses that we saw on Nigerian breweries, which was down 7.33%. Nestle saw a huge sell-off last week and was down 2.91%. All of these losses impacted on the returns that we saw on the consumer goods segment of the market. Consumer goods segment, due to some huge losses as well on the Seplat PLC, Seplat, which fell some 7.86% last week, impacted on this segment and was able to outweigh all of the returns and gains that should have actually come in through 11 PLC and Eternal PLC in the market last week. And of course, this takes us to the energy stocks. If you look at it across board, we have losses recorded on this particular platform. Corn oil was unchanged for the greater part of Friday. On Friday, we saw a 107 basis points decline in Forte oil, and that's just 1.07%. In terms of what we saw at 11 PLC, 11 PLC had risen to 170 naira in share price, but was unchanged on Friday, and we saw some 3,498 units of its shares traded. MRS was unchanged, Oando was unchanged, Seplat for Friday was unchanged, but on week-on-week valuation, it actually experienced a lot of losses. Total PLC on Friday did some 2% decline from a 200 naira plus share price it's been experiencing for a while. External PLC on Friday didn't change in share price, and Global Spectrum, Japol, the Capital Oil, and RAC Unity all remain unchanged in terms of their valuations. At the unlisted securities market, it was a bit of gain week on week. We saw some 0.08% rise in the indices, and that settled at 750.56, with the market capitalization, which also closed at 539.23 billion naira. If you look at the volume of transactions that we saw was 13.196 million, and that was valued at 189.28 million naira. But in total, there was just 7 deals. For the fixed income markets, for the greater part of last week, a couple of news actually rattled the bond market. The bond market for last week was actually mixed. We saw the news of a rise in the VAT, the value-added tax, and of course the release of circular for the bond auction that will take place on Wednesday this week by the Debt Management Office. These two key news were basically the key factors that drove the market for the greater part of last week. But then average yield rose some 2 basis points week on week, and then settled at 14.19%. Now we saw pressure at the mid end of the curve, and of course the long end of the curve, where yields on the February 2028 security eventually expanded by some 13 basis points, and the March 2036 security saw an expansion representing the longer end of the curve now by some 11 basis points. But if you look at the demands that we saw in January 2022, that led to some contraction at the mid end of the curve, and that was a contraction of some 23 basis points on the January 2022 security, basically for the greater part of last week. But if you take a look at Treasury bills, last week we also saw some bearish outing basically for investors on that end of the market. CBN also offered some longer than tenured bills. Average yields eventually rose some 356 basis points to some 35 basis points, I beg your pardon, to 13.66%. We saw sell-ups at the short end of the curve and, of course, at the long end of the curve. The mid end of the curve was not left out because that also saw an expansion of some 29 basis points eventually. But yields on the 27-day to maturity security also saw some expansion. For the 132-day to maturity, it expanded some 61 basis points, while the 321-day to maturity also saw an expansion of 55 basis points. So, but the key events for the greater part of last week at that side of the market was the offering by the CBN, and of course the OMO auction got an allotment for the 48.56 billion naira worth of bills that was put on offer last week. And we know that stop rates at that end of the market also moderated some 42 basis points due to the low demands that we saw across board, Bosun.
Yes, Temple, a nice one there, rounding off the market and giving us a sense of where we finished off in the third week of March. Of course, if you look at the equity side, if we speak specifically to the equity side, we'll get a bit of a better understanding of where we were last week and the current week later on the program from FMDQ Exchange Place. But first, if you look at the equities, where you sit at the equities market, the home for equities in Nigeria, which is the stock exchange, this was nearly 2% down since we started the month of March. Again, the market was not helped, I'm sure, by news. Look at what happened last week with those earnings that we have, Mobile and the rest of them. The stock market still continue to find new lows. We dropped to 30,000 on the composite index during the week. And those heavy bashing by profit taking was quite negative for the equities market. Folks asking, where do we go from here? What would be the catalyst for the equities market to move in the upper direction?
I think basically the catalyst right now will just be the earnings, and it is something that will continue to trickle in gradually, especially for the greater part of this new week that we've just basically launched. We'll see more earnings that will be coming in. You talked about First Bank coming to close the market earlier. First Bank has been a major driver of the gains we've seen in recent times on FBN Holdings. And FBN Holdings, which is the listed part of First Bank here, the umbrella body of First Bank, which is listed in the Nigerian Stock Exchange, has experienced huge returns in the market lately. It is a particular company that a lot of investors will continue to watch. And of course, that is because of the earnings that will be declared by this particular company. And so you know that there are so many other companies too that haven't actually released their numbers. And now that the elections are actually over, we should see a lot of these companies declaring their numbers, their earnings for the full year 2018 calendar year in the markets, because that will also possibly come with a lot of dividends declared for the investors. So that's the primary catalyst that we'll see in the market. However, there are positive macroeconomic fundamentals in the system as well. The fact that we have seen inflation moderating in recent times, the fact that there are projections that it is likely to be that way, that the CBN will keep its MPR at the same rate. I mean, the CBN governor had already hinted to the state of the monetary policy last week. And so the things have been, then if you take a look at FX as well, that has also been stable. It hasn't been fluctuating as it used to be before now. So given all of these fundamentals that we've seen around, the key reasons why a lot of investors should actually key into the market, put down their funds, pending when some probably hot money will come into the market, and then it will shoot up their own returns and give them room to, possibly sell down or take profit or something. Capital appreciation is basically what I'm talking about. That is something that some investors who will be investing within the short to medium term will be possibly will be able to gain in the markets going forward, Bosun.
I think if you look at the market last year, that was the banking index returning about 3.82%, nearly 4%. And we could just say thank you there to Access and Diamond Bank on completion of those approvals they needed for the merger, which they now says is going to be formally unveiled on the 1st of April. That will be a Monday. That will not be an April Fool, by the way, anyone. So the merger will still take place. Don't try to pull anything, anyone who wants to think it's not going to take place. It's now done and dusted.
Correct, Bosun. It's something that there's another good news for the depositors of these two banks. Anyways, the fact that it is being described as a business combination, even though some people still argue that it is an acquisition. Well, the point is the operations you've been experiencing way before now will continue under the umbrella of Access Bank. The fact that you had an account under Diamond Bank does not mean that your account is going to be shut down. In essence, the case is not the same thing as that of some other banks that have been wiped out of the market. This is just the fact that you will now operate under the umbrella of Access Bank.
Yes, but the shares,
take a look at Access Bank,
the big story is around the shares.
Yeah.
The big story is around the shares, because that's what investors will be looking forward to. Your money is safe in either banks. That's one is there.
Exactly.
But in terms of the shares, last week we saw a big jump, some measure of jump in the shares of Access Bank. Once those announcements were filed with the stock exchange and those things hit the street, Access Bank actually drove that space.
Correct, Bosun. So the point is, it is a business combination. The share side of things have already been settled at the extraordinary general meeting, where it says that you're going to have the shares of shareholdings of Diamond Bank shares of Diamond Bank shareholders will be absorbed into Access Bank, and then you even get some profits by way of payments. Again, at the end of the day, if you look at that, it is a better deal for these investors. The fact that their shares are not going down the drain, it's going into Access Bank. It means you become a stakeholder in Access Bank, which is one of the key reasons why a lot of people have started buying the shares of Access Bank. And for the greater part of last week, it moved by 18% plus, 18.21% or thereabouts. Now, that is even that's how it concerns the tier 2 names. This also gives investors who are more interested in tier 2 names opportunity to also buy in other names like Fidelity Bank,
I'm sure you're going to have
the likes in the market.
Temple, we're going to have a lot more time this week. This is the final week to the unveiling of the new Access Bank on the 1st of April. So this is the week, which today is Monday. But this time next week, Monday, next week we'll be talking about the new ocean or new horizon for Access Bank. Thank you very much. Let's see you later on the program. Of course, after we come back from this 2-minute break, we'll be looking at the conclusion of the Capital Markets Committee last week. What were the key issues and decisions? We'll try to break it down from Mary Uduk's SEC. Let's take all of that on board when we come back. 2 minutes.